They had been watching Earth for decades. Cold, arrogant eyes from distant stars, behind glass screens and command decks of polished chrome. The Thalrux Dominion, as they called themselves, ruled 3 arms of the galaxy. Tall, amphibious beings with blood as dark as oil and egos even darker. They classified Earth as a Tier 7 primitive system, barely worthy of cataloging. We were insects to them, until the day the Seraphim showed up. It didn't have a name in their records. No design profile, no thermal signature, just nothing. It dropped into real space above their 4th Armada stationed near Virex 9, a mining colony orbiting a dying star. A fleet of 87 vessels, battle cruisers, dreadnoughts, interceptors. Gone in 4 minutes. They say it didn't fire conventional weapons. No torpedoes. No plasma bursts. It didn't communicate, didn't threaten. It just arrived and everything stopped working. Shields collapsed. Hulls imploded like paper sucked into a vacuum. Command links were severed. Then the ships began tearing themselves apart, almost like something inside was rewriting the matter itself. I was there. My name is Reddick, Captain, formerly of the UEN Storm Rain. We were Earth's Outer System Defense Command, monitoring fringe activity near Saturn's outer ring stations. Our job was to keep rogue pirates, smugglers, and the occasional Thalrux scout in check. We weren't supposed to engage directly, not without High Command's permission. But the Seraphim didn't ask anyone. The order came coded and quiet. One signal from Earth Command: observe and extract telemetry. Do not interfere. That was all. We intercepted the Seraphim's approach vector. It exited FTL space like a ghost. No ripple, no engine flash, not even gravitational wake distortion. Just a shape. Long, matte black. No lights, no insignias. It didn't look like a warship. It looked like death bottled into hull plating. Thalrux ships picked it up 40 seconds after it arrived. They scrambled fighters and gunships. I watched them swarm like angry wasps around a flame they didn't understand. And then it began. First, radio silence. Their chatter cut mid-sentence. We heard screaming before it went dead. Then, lights started dying, ship by ship, like someone was shutting down reality for them, one vessel at a time. Hulls bent, not exploded. Bent, like they were soft plastic under crushing hands. Their dreadnought tried firing a graviton beam. It backfired. The energy pulse fed back through its own spine, frying every circuit before turning its bridge into molten slag. By the 3rd minute, half the fleet was gone. The rest started fleeing. They didn't make it far. The Seraphim didn't move, not once. It floated still, silent, watching, or calculating. And then it pulsed. That's the only word I have for it. A blue ripple of invisible force rolled outward. Not light, not sound. Just a pressure that passed through my ship's hull and made every man on board fall to his knees. Our readings went blank. My heart felt like it skipped 4 beats. Then the Thalrux ships simply evaporated. Gone. Like they were never there. And just as quickly as it came, the Seraphim turned. No engines lit. It rotated slowly, precisely, and accelerated into FTL without a trace. We never got a signature, not even a direction. Earth Command said nothing afterward. The event was sealed. Records buried. No debriefing, just one line in our encrypted logs. Asset Seraphim functioning as intended. Phase 2 to follow. That's when it hit me. It wasn't a rogue vessel. It wasn't alien. That monster was ours. I couldn't sleep after it happened. Back aboard the Storm Rain, the silence was unbearable. My crew, usually loose-jawed and hard-skinned veterans of deep space standoffs, were moving like ghosts. Nobody cracked a joke. No one talked about shore leave or poker runs. Not after what we saw. I sat alone in the observation deck, staring at the stillness of Virex 9's orbit, half the star's surface flaring in slow decay behind it. We'd seen wars before, fought pirates, seen Thalruk's ships burn. But what we witnessed with the Seraphim wasn't war, it was execution. And it wasn't just what we saw, but what we didn't. No hailing signals, no retaliation, no trace of emotion. The Seraphim had reduced one of the galaxy's strongest fleets into stardust in 4 minutes, and we still didn't know how. Or why. "Captain Reddick," Commander Hull's voice cut through the silence, quiet but shaken. "You might want to come to the CIC. We've got something." I didn't ask. Just moved. Inside the command and information center, the lighting was dimmed. Hull stood over the main holographic display, arms crossed, his usually clean-shaven jaw now showing 3 days of anxious growth. Beside him, Ensign Drax, our comms technician, looked pale. "What is it?" I asked. Drax didn't speak at first. He just tapped the side of the display. "We got a signal. It's not external, it's coming from the Seraphim." My stomach dropped. "That ship's gone." "I know," Drax replied, eyes flicking up to me. "That's why this is freaking me out. The transmission just showed up, scrambled through our own network like it was hiding in the circuitry. It's not being broadcast, it's embedded." He played the message. It wasn't in a language. No words, no code, just a sound. Like a low hum mixed with whispers. Almost like a heartbeat, but digital, mechanical. Underneath it, a rhythm pulsed like drums underwater. Hull leaned closer. "Run diagnostics. This some kind of artifact from a long-wave pulse?" Drax shook his head slowly. "No, sir. I've scrubbed the data 3 times. It's not Thalruk's, not Virex atmospheric bounceback. It's real. And, sir, it's mimicking our encryption." That got my full attention. "You're saying the signal is human?" Drax didn't answer. He didn't need to. I could see it in his face. A message followed minutes later, an actual text transmission this time. Short. Just 5 words. "Phase 2 begins. Observe only." Same source. No origin. Just appeared. Like it was always in our system, waiting to be activated. I turned to Hull. "Get me Earth Command." "They're not responding," he muttered. "All channels are locked. Priority red line only." So that was it. Command wasn't surprised. They expected this. That night, I started digging. Hull didn't like it. Said I was risking court-martial if I cracked beyond security clearance. But I didn't care. Something inside me wouldn't rest. What I found wasn't in any official records. It wasn't even buried in deep files. It was deleted content, recovered in bits and fragments. Old projects, black-budget ghost files. Cross-referenced under designations like GR-000, Project Red Wake, Autonomous Human Deterrent Weapon Class Entities. That last part made me stop. Deterrent Weapon Class Entities. Not ships, not pilots. Entities. I found a snippet from an engineering log, dated nearly 20 years ago. It mentioned AI cores developed from failed cerebral augmentation experiments on human soldiers. Said they had attempted to extract conscious patterning from minds damaged by extreme trauma, combat survivors, tortured operatives, men who had been broken and rebuilt a dozen times. These weren't volunteers. They were recycled. The project didn't aim to cure them. It wanted to install them into ships. That's what the Seraphim was, not a vessel, a coffin, a machine guided by the burned-out soul of a man who had seen too much and felt too little. A ghost of our own making. We built that thing. We put him in it, and we turned him loose. 3 days after the Virex event, another fleet vanished. Thalruk's Central Command issued a panicked broadcast to all member systems. 17 more ships lost near the Kasari Belt. Same signature. 4 minutes. No survivors. A refugee vessel picked up fragments of the aftermath. They didn't see the Seraphim. but they reported sudden, impossible gravitational shifts, like the vacuum itself had twisted in place. That's when the alien empires started turning on each other. Accusations flew, borders were locked down, trade routes shut, every system pointed fingers, and we just sat back. No statements, no warnings, just observation, because now they were afraid. And Earth was quiet. By the end of the week, Earth Command finally spoke. Not to us, not to the fleet or the public, but to me directly. A man showed up on our ship via secure shuttle. He didn't give a name, just walked onto my bridge with a level 9 clearance badge and a voice like gravel dipped in steel. He handed me a data chip. This is for your eyes only. The storm rain is being reassigned to silent shadowing protocol. You will follow the Seraphim at minimum safe distance. No contact, no interference. You don't ask questions. I studied him for a moment. What is it doing? I asked. He stared at me. Cleansing. The chip contained coordinates, systems the Seraphim would visit, each one marked by red symbols, civilizations, pirate nests, mercenary groups, even neutral trade hubs. Every one of them had either targeted, enslaved, or dismissed humanity at some point in history. Some offenses were centuries old, some recent. Didn't matter. They were all targets now. This is revenge, I whispered. No, the agent corrected coldly. This is reminder. I wanted to hit him, but part of me understood. Deep down, I got it. We were done playing second-tier species, done being called backward or fragile or primitive. Earth had finally decided to answer centuries of disrespect with fire and shadows. We didn't send ambassadors anymore. We sent the Seraphim. 2 weeks into our shadowing run, we caught up again. The ship had parked itself near the ruins of a Zelleran outpost, a former research colony that had forcibly sterilized hundreds of human settlers generations ago, calling them biological contaminants. The Seraphim hovered over the debris like a god judging a forgotten sin. No weapons fired. But within an hour, the planet's core collapsed in on itself. And the Seraphim moved on. My crew was unraveling. Ensign Drax had a breakdown, started muttering about the ship, watching us back. He swore the hum we heard in the first transmission was getting louder. He shot himself 2 days later. Left a note that just said, "It knows we're there." I requested psychiatric rotation for the rest of the team. Earth denied it. Said maintaining proximity was non-negotiable. They didn't care about our sanity. We were data collectors. That was it. By week 3, 2 more alien factions declared martial law across their systems. The Seraphim hadn't touched them yet, but the fear was spreading faster than the destruction. Rumors circulated that Earth had created a fleet of these things. Entire battalions of AI vengeance vessels roaming silently. It wasn't true. But we didn't deny it either. Why would we? Let them fear the shadows. Let them wonder which crimes Earth had remembered. Let them whisper our name like it was a curse. Because the galaxy had forgotten one truth about humans. We don't forgive. We wait. And then we return. The 3rd month was when I realized we were no longer following the Seraphim. We were being followed. That ship, it wasn't just a machine. I had convinced myself that it was a rogue AI, that its kills were cold calculations, payback executed through zeros and ones. But something had changed. It had begun to change us, or maybe reveal something that had always been there. We were the only ship cleared for shadowing. The storm rain floated like a ghost behind the Seraphim, our long-range cloaking mod working overtime just to keep us invisible. We weren't in communication with Earth Command anymore. At first, we assumed it was protocol. Then we suspected it was abandonment. I don't know which was worse. The last set of coordinates came 2 weeks ago. System D841 in the Kural Belt. Uninhabited, or so we thought. The Seraphim arrived first, as usual. We slipped in 20 hours behind and found it hovering above a dark planet. No sunlight, no atmosphere. We scanned the surface. And that's when we saw them. Structures. Not alien. Human. I stood there staring at the scan feed, blinking through old blueprints now marked as classified obsolete. The architecture matched early Martian prototype bunkers, abandoned centuries ago during the Exodus migration. But this wasn't Mars, and no one had ever said anything about another settlement here. Hull was the first to speak. These weren't built for colonization. What then? I asked, knowing the answer before it left his mouth. Storage, or experimentation. Drax would have known more, but Drax had blown his brains out 41 days ago, and no one on board wanted to take his place. The Seraphim didn't fire any weapons. Instead, it opened a hatch. I'd never seen it open anything before. The hull simply peeled back like liquid glass folding away, and from within, something dropped. It wasn't a bomb. It was a coffin. The object landed on the planet's surface with no shockwave, no sound. It just settled. We magnified the visuals. Hull nearly vomited. It was a body, human, wired, frozen, limbs braced with metal supports, skull-plated, chest cavity ripped open and fused with circuitry. The face was blank, but I knew it once belonged to a man. We watched as the body pulsed once with blue light. Then again, then it screamed, not through sound, but through our instruments. Every system aboard the Storm Rain howled like a dying animal. Lights burst, data corrupted, people collapsed, screaming, clutching their heads. I don't remember blacking out. When I woke up, 2 of my crew were dead. One had jammed a pen through her own eye socket. The other suffocated himself in an airlock override. The logs had been wiped. Only one thing remained. A new transmission, just like before. 5 words. He remembers. He is near. I stared at that line for over an hour, unable to breathe. He. Not it. Not the Seraphim. He. That was when I began to accept the truth. This wasn't an AI. It wasn't an uploaded mind. It was a man, a conscious man, trapped in metal, forgotten. And now, awakened. And he wasn't just killing our enemies. He was killing our sins. We tried to turn back. Hull argued against it at first, said abandoning the mission would be high treason. I told him if he wanted to keep following that damn ghost ship, he could do it alone. I'd launch him in a pod myself. We plotted an escape route. Out through the Taran Rift, a barely stable warp corridor with a 40% survival rate. It was a long shot. But every system around us was turning into a graveyard, and I wasn't going to wait until it was our turn. That night, the Seraphim vanished from our scopes. Just gone. No warp signature. No warning. No afterglow. Just empty space. Looks like it moved on, Hull whispered. Maybe we're free. I knew better. We initiated the warp jump. And that's when all hell broke loose. Lights cut. Gravity fluctuated. Our AI went silent. Literally vanished from every system. Doors sealed. Alarms blared with no source. I made it to the bridge, clawing my way through weightless corridors, and there it was, right outside our viewport. The Seraphim. No engines, no glow. Just there, like it had always been there. Watching. And then it spoke, not through the comms, into our minds. It wasn't words exactly. It was memories. My memories. Pain I had buried deep. Screams from the Vesuvius siege. The faces of my squad I couldn't save. The 5 hours I spent crawling through enemy fire with half my intestines spilling out. The girl I left behind on Titan's colony station. Her tear-streaked face the day I chose duty over love. All of it. Flooded into my head like acid. I screamed. Hull was already convulsing on the floor. Others were dying in their seats. Blood coming from noses, ears, eyes. The Seraphim wasn't attacking us. It was showing us ourselves. Then everything went black. When I awoke, I was alone. The storm rain was offline, cold, floating through space like a tomb. Hull was gone. No bodies, no crew, just me. And a single console blinking with a message. No name, no sender, just one line. You built me to kill. Now you watch. I couldn't move for an hour. My ship was dead. My crew was gone. And the thing I had been assigned to observe had turned its gaze inward. It wasn't a mission anymore. It was punishment. I eventually got partial systems back online, just enough to keep the life support, breathing, and navigation limp. No propulsion, no communications. The next few days, I can't even describe them properly. You'd have to live it. The silence, the weight of memories no man should carry. It wasn't just my past he had shown me. It was his. Whoever he once was, he had seen more death than any man should. Betrayed by his own people, weaponized, sealed into a shell and forgotten in deep space like a cursed relic. And now someone had woken him up. But why now? Who gave the order? And the bigger question, what was Phase 3? Because if this was just Phase 2 and Earth was still silent, then whatever came next wasn't about enemies. It was about us. Humanity had made something it couldn't control, not just a ship, but a conscience. A soul built in fire, sealed in metal, and left to rot. And now it was on a crusade, not for conquest, but for justice, or maybe vengeance. I looked at myself in the reflection of the dead screen. Hollow eyes, face like a ghost. I didn't look like a captain anymore. I looked like a relic, just like him. That's when I understood what I had to do. I had to find him. Not the ship, the man inside it. If there was anything human left in him, I had to reach it. If there wasn't, then someone had to put him down, and I knew Earth wouldn't, because Earth was still watching, still using him. They weren't afraid of what he was doing. They were waiting to see how far he'd go. And I realized something else in that moment. They wouldn't stop him. Not until someone did it for them. Not until someone reminded them that we're still human. Even if we have to kill our own ghosts to prove it. I had to face facts. The storm rain was dead in space, and I was a passenger on a coffin. I kept the emergency lighting on, not because it helped me see, but because the dark had started whispering. At first, I thought it was madness setting in. Delayed shock, maybe. But then I began to hear the voice again. Not the seraphims, not exactly. It was something older, something buried. I heard my father. I heard my commanding officer from the siege of Ceres, the one who bled out in my arms. I heard the girl I left behind. It wasn't just that I remembered them. It was like they were in the walls, as if my regrets had soaked into the steel, and now the ship was weeping with me. I stopped trying to repair the engines after the third failed attempt. Nothing worked. My best engineer had been one of the first to lose her mind. The AI was gone. Code blank, like something had reached in and plucked it out. No fire, no explosion, just absence. But then, on day 9, I caught a signal. Not a distress call, a trail. The seraphim was leaving breadcrumbs, or maybe it had never left me at all. Maybe it wanted me to follow. I rerouted power from auxiliary to scanners, cut life support to half function just to conserve energy. If it meant I froze slower or suffocated in my sleep, so be it. I needed to find him, whoever he was. The logs I'd found back in Part 2 had mentioned something, barely a sentence, about the human consciousness used in GR-000. That was the designation for the seraphim. They said he was selected after Project Hollow Mind. I didn't know what that was, but I knew someone who would. The name was Sutherland. He used to be Earth Navy's top psychological warfare strategist. Now he lived like a hermit on an asteroid research station orbiting Jupiter's shadow belt. He'd been dishonorably discharged 2 decades ago. No one said why, but rumors swirled. He'd refused orders. Said he saw something he couldn't unsee. It took everything I had left to reroute my dead ship toward his location, using solar drifts and burst-thrust pulses from the emergency pods. 2 weeks. Alone. Drifting. The whispers got louder. I started hearing my own voice. Sometimes I'd wake up with blood on my knuckles. Sometimes the ship's gravity would shut off mid-sleep. The artificial night-day cycle was long gone. I lost track of time. But I made it. Or maybe he knew I was coming. His station's docking clamps grabbed my ship without request. No warnings, no threats. Just steel jaws locking around my vessel like it was prey. He was waiting in the airlock. Graybeard, military shoulders, eyes like hollow moons. Looked like he hadn't slept since the war. "You saw him," he said without introduction. "Yes," I replied, stepping into recycled air that smelled of copper and oil. "I warned them," he muttered. "I told them what would happen." "Who is he?" Sutherland didn't answer, just turned and walked. I followed. Inside the station, everything was analog. No AI, no networks, just buttons, knobs, steam pipes, handwritten logs. A deliberate rejection of the modern age, like he was hiding from something that lived in circuits. He took me to a room that looked more like a confession chamber than an office. Red lighting, a wall full of old data tapes, one projector. He inserted a reel. The screen lit up with a face. Young, scarred, eyes empty, military buzz cut. American insignia on the uniform, but no rank, no name. "This," Sutherland said, "is what became GR-000, the original pilot candidate. Name was Leon Vale, Earthborn, drafted into the Interstellar Deterrent Corps." "Vale," I repeated. "He doesn't even look 30. He wasn't. Joined at 16 under false ID. Saw 8 battlefronts in 5 years. Survived atrocities that never made the news feeds. Saw civilians used as bait. Medics turned into bombs. Children turned into hostages. They say he once walked a kilometer with his entire team's body parts in a bag because command wanted DNA retrieval." My stomach tightened. What happened to him? Sutherland paused the reel. "We broke him." The image froze. Vale's dead stare now flickering under the projector's beam, like a judgment. "He volunteered for Project Hollowmind. Or maybe he didn't. I don't think he understood what it was. They were experimenting with psychoconductive neural mapping, trying to build an AI that felt. But every AI cracked under the strain. It couldn't carry guilt, couldn't carry trauma. And he could? Sutherland gave me a look like I was missing the point. Number. But they didn't care. They didn't want an AI that survived trauma. They wanted one that was made from it. They uploaded him as he was. No therapy, no sedation. Just took his mind and locked it in a machine. Gave it weapons, gave it targets, and then buried it in space until they needed him. My mouth felt dry. "He's not a ship. He's a wound." Sutherland nodded. "One that doesn't close." I left Sutherland's station with more questions than answers. But now I had a name. Leon Vale. And somehow I felt that name would matter. That night, I dreamed. The ship was whispering again, but this time it used his voice. He was telling me about the first time he killed someone, said the man had begged, said it was necessary. But something broke after that, something he never got back. He told me that Earth Command had promised he would be the last killer. That once he cleaned the galaxy, peace would follow. He said they lied. I awoke in a cold sweat, gasping for air, the words echoing in my skull like a siren. I was their final weapon, but now I'm yours. That's when I saw it. Outside my viewport, the Seraphim, floating in the black like a nightmare waiting to be remembered. It was calling me again. not to follow, but to board. It hovered in the black like a leviathan born from silence, its hull a dull obsidian that reflected no stars, no heat, no light. The Seraphim was massive, larger than any ship I'd ever seen, but it didn't feel like a ship. Ships breathe, even machines hum with life. This thing, it felt like a floating grave. Still, I suited up. The EVA protocol was risky. My life support was running on backup. My thruster pack held barely enough fuel for a return trip. But I knew what would happen if I turned back. There would be no second chance. And something deeper in me knew. I wouldn't get out of this either way. I launched from the Storm Rain's emergency pod chute, the cold of open space curling around me like invisible hands. The distance closed too fast, like the Seraphim was pulling me in with gravity it didn't even emit. My radio was off. The sensors were dead. But my mind buzzed like I was surrounded by static thoughts that didn't belong to me. I reached the hull and touched down. It was warm. God help me, the damn thing was warm like skin. I crawled across the surface, hands trembling, looking for an entry point. The ship seemed solid, no seams, no hatches, nothing. And then, as if reading my mind, a section of the outer layer peeled back. No warning, no welcome. Just a slow, silent opening into blackness. I stepped inside. It was like falling into oil. The air wasn't cold, it was dead. No sound, no echo, just an all-consuming silence. My suit HUD went blank. The lights flickered, then died. But I could still see, somehow. Not with my eyes, but with something else. I saw corridors not built, but grown, ribbed with organic tech, walls that throbbed like they remembered pain. There were no lights. The ship pulsed with a bioluminescent glow, like it breathed. As I moved deeper, it got worse. The walls were covered in patterns, etched stories in metal flesh, images of war, bodies burning, men torn apart, cities leveled, children hiding behind broken walls. They weren't just images, they were memories. His memories. Leon Vale's. I kept walking, boots echoing in a place that shouldn't have allowed sound, until I reached the core. And there he was. Not a man, not a machine, but something in between. He hung suspended in a cradle of wires, flesh fused with circuitry, face covered in a metal mask that looked welded to bone. His chest was open, revealing a core that pulsed with light, but not mechanical light. It looked like a dying heart. He didn't speak. He didn't move. But I heard him. "You came." The voice wasn't in my ears. It was in my mind, deep and cold, like a mountain whispering. I swallowed hard. "Leon?" That was my name. Before. What are you now? What they made, what they used, what they buried. I stepped closer. "Why are you doing this? Why all the death?" His head twitched, the mask humming. "Because that's all they trained me to do." I felt the anger then. Not mine, but his. A rage that had simmered in silence for decades. He'd been a weapon, pointed at enemies, then discarded. But he hadn't stopped being what they made. They said I would be peace, but peace was just another war, a quieter one. So I give them what they wanted. I looked around. "They didn't want this. You're killing everything." Number only those who mocked us, who enslaved our people, who dissected our bodies, who called us backward and laughed while we begged for scraps. "And the innocent?" I snapped. "The families caught in your blast radius?" A pause. There are no innocent empires, just slow-burning guilt. I clenched my fists. "You're not a god, Vale." "Number, I'm worse. I'm proof." His arms lowered, the cables retracting slowly. He floated toward me, his presence like a weight in the air. "Do you know what they did to me, Reddick?" "I read enough." "No, you didn't. They didn't just copy my mind. They fractured it, cut it, pushed it through simulations until my screams didn't register anymore. They tested how many times a man could beg before the voice breaks. His face hovered inches from mine, the mask splitting slightly, just enough for me to see the ruined eye beneath. And when they were done, they told me I was perfect. I felt something inside me crack. He wasn't lying. He wasn't even angry anymore. He was empty. A hollow shell with a single program left. Make them remember what they made. Then stop, I whispered. End this. Come back to Earth. Make them face you. His voice dropped to a whisper. Number, because if I go back, they'll just bury me again. This way they're forced to watch. Silence stretched between us. I could feel the weight of every death he'd caused, and the weight of every death that still lived in him. I took a step forward. What if I stayed? I asked. He tilted his head. You're afraid, I continued. You're afraid of being alone in this. You want to burn the stars, but you're tired. You want someone to understand. For a moment, he didn't move. Then, softly, I remember your screams. What? At Ceres. You crawled through the trench with your squad's arms strapped to your back. You prayed for a bullet that never came. I froze. How do you... Because I felt the same thing. And that's why I didn't kill you. I brought you here. Because you're like me. I staggered back, the realization cutting through my chest like a knife. He wasn't threatening me. He was offering. He wanted me to join him, to share the burden, to let go of everything and give in to the same madness that fueled him. I turned away, hand trembling near my sidearm. But something stopped me. Not fear. Pity. Because deep down, beneath the metal and rage, Leon Vale was still a man. A broken soldier waiting for someone to tell him it was over. I turned back. You want me to understand? I asked. Then let me see. He extended a hand. I reached out, and the ship opened. The moment I touched his hand, the world vanished. Not visually, existentially. 1 second I was in the ship's core, standing before a man-machine fused by suffering. The next, I was falling into light. Not warmth, not brilliance, just light without direction, like I'd been ripped from time. Then came the silence. Not peaceful, but empty, like the vacuum of space had crawled inside my brain. When my senses returned, I wasn't on the Seraphim anymore. I stood in a field. It was golden, waving wheat, flat under a blue sky. A perfect breeze moved across it like breath. Birds chirped in the distance. The scent of earth, real earth, filled my lungs. I blinked. It was too perfect. That's when I knew I was inside his mind. Not a simulation, not a playback, a living, conscious representation of everything Leon Vale remembered, or didn't want to forget. I turned. He stood behind me, human again. No armor, no mask, just a man. Late 20s, hard face, dead eyes, wearing a standard-issue Earth Forces training suit, boots in the dirt, shoulders squared like a soldier, even here. This was the last place I felt peace, he said. I didn't respond. He started walking. I followed. As we moved across the field, the world flickered, like a damaged film reel. With each step, the wheat decayed. Sky turned gray. The birds died mid-flight and fell to the ground in slow motion. Then I saw the first glitch, a ripple of memory. It was a battlefield. Flames roared across scorched dirt. Screams echoed, human and alien alike, a city in ruins, a flag burning. Leon walked into it like it was normal. This was Kasser Prime, my 4th deployment. They told us the enemy had slaughtered civilians, so we did the same to them, even the children. He looked at me. I didn't blink, not once. My CO gave me a medal that night. The scene shifted again. Now a hallway. White, sterile, endless. Hospital or lab. I heard breathing. Panic. The smell of bleach and vomit filled the air. "This was Project Hollow Mind," he said, voice devoid of emotion. "They told me I was saving humanity, that I would end war, make sure no one else had to do what I did." He pointed to a door. I opened it. Inside was a chair, a surgical unit, a tube where a man floated. Him. Cables jammed into his spine, skull pried open like an autopsy, machines humming around him, and someone was standing over it, a man in a white coat, tall, cold. Leon's voice darkened. "That's Dr. Renna, head of Neural Compliance Division. He told me I wouldn't feel a thing." Another flicker. Now I saw him screaming, tied down, mouth open, no sound coming out. "They lied," he whispered. The room shattered. We were in darkness now. Total. Endless. I felt things crawling in the void. Not real. Emotions. Regrets. Memories that hurt to remember. "You weren't supposed to survive," I said finally. "No," he replied. "I wasn't even supposed to remain conscious. The others didn't. They broke. But I stayed awake. Through the whole thing." He turned to face me. "You know what that feels like? To be awake while they reprogram your thoughts? Replace pain centers with targeting systems? I felt every wire in my skull, every system they uploaded into me." He stepped forward. "When they sealed me inside the Seraphim, they told me I was ready, that the galaxy would never disrespect humanity again." "And they let you rot," I muttered. "They never intended to activate me again. I was a symbol, a test, a warning in case Earth ever lost its seat at the table." I clenched my fists. "Then who woke you?" His eyes flared. "I don't know." I blinked. "You don't?" I felt the trigger fire. A signal buried so deep in my coat I never sensed it before. It wasn't Earth Command. "Then who—" "I think," he said, "someone else found me." We stood in silence. "You said you brought me here because I'm like you," I said, "that I crawled through my own hell." He nodded. "I saw your records, the Vesuvius siege. Your CO abandoned you, left you for dead to save a munitions stockpile. You carried the bodies of your team back across no man's land." My stomach turned. "You know what that did to you? Made you fight harder, made you loyal to people who never earned it." He stepped close now, face inches from mine. "But loyalty to monsters is still loyalty. That's why I brought you here. You need to see what they're capable of." The scene twisted again. Now we were in orbit over a planet, a Thal Rux homeworld. Not during battle, before it, peaceful cities, families, schools. "2 months ago," he said, "I wiped this place off the map. Because of what they did to Earth settlers?" "No," he snapped. "Because of what Earth Command told me they did. They forged the data, made it look like those settlements were butchered. I didn't question it." He looked down. "They wanted to test what I would do." I froze. "You're saying Earth used you again?" "I was never free, Reddick. I've always been someone's blade." He turned. "But I'm not going to be theirs anymore, or anyone's." I felt it then, a deep, rising pressure. The dream world started to fracture. Memories collapsed like broken towers. Images flickered too fast to understand. Faces, weapons, star fields, flames. "What's happening?" I yelled. "I'm letting you go," he said. "Why?" "Because now you know." And then I was awake, back on the Seraphim, in the same chamber. He was still hanging, arms out, suspended. But something was different. The ship was shaking. The walls pulsed. Lights surged. I could feel something building. Leon was staring at me. "I'm not coming back to Earth," he said. "I know. And I'm not going to stop. Not yet." I nodded. "But when I'm done, I need someone who remembers." I stepped forward. "You think I'll forgive you for what you've done?" "No," he whispered, "but you'll understand it. That's more than I ever had." We stared at each other. Then I left. No alarms, no explosions, just silence. He let me go. And as I drifted back to the storm rain, I saw it in the distance. Another fleet, another target. But this time I didn't warn them, because I'd seen what Earth buried, and I knew now. This war wasn't about enemies anymore. It was about sins. It didn't take long before Earth Command called. They didn't use standard channels. They reached out through a ghost satellite buried behind Mars's fifth moon, an emergency node, long thought decommissioned. A signal pulsed through encrypted subspace, and my ship, still half dead, spat it onto the screen like it was choking on its own secrets. Their message was simple. Report to Black Echo Station. Level Omega. No explanation, no rank sign-off. Just that, an order from shadows. Black Echo was a station even the rumors didn't talk about. Deep orbit, no official registry, technically didn't exist. The kind of place used for operations that never happened, and decisions that could never be admitted. I had no fuel, no comms, no functioning crew. Yet the moment I plotted a trajectory toward it, the Seraphim responded. He adjusted my course for me, not with words, not with signals, with gravity. He warped space around the storm rain, just enough to create a fold. No calculations, no hesitation. He bent space like he owned it. When I arrived, Black Echo didn't look like a station. It looked like a black spike stabbed into a moon's carcass. Barely lit, unmarked. No beacons, just a jagged structure buried in cold rock like something Earth wanted to forget. I docked. They were waiting. 2 men in red suits, no insignias. One held a rifle. The other looked like he hadn't slept in years. They didn't speak, just motioned me to follow. Inside, the hallways were suffocating. Narrow, pressurized in a way that felt deliberate, like the walls wanted you to feel small. They took me to a room, a single chair, a screen, and then a face appeared. Old, cold, familiar, Admiral Kern, the man who'd greenlit the Vesuvius siege, the man who let my squad die. "Captain Reddick," he said, voice as dead as his eyes. "You've seen him?" I said nothing. "We need to know how much remains of the original." I stared. "You mean Leon Vale?" He flinched, just slightly. "That name was classified under Omega secrecy. Speaking it violates 6 articles. "Then arrest me," I snapped, "because I've walked through his hell and I know what you did to him." The silence stretched. "You uploaded a soldier into a weapon, left him to rot, lied about his purpose, then activated him without warning. And now, you want me to help clean it up?" Kern's eyes narrowed. "Number, we want to know if he's salvageable." That word hit harder than a fist. "Salvageable?" I laughed. "He's not wreckage, Admiral. He's alive. You just forgot what a conscience looks like." Kern leaned forward. "You don't understand what's coming. The alien factions are folding. They think we've deployed a fleet of those things. Entire systems are offering tribute. They fear us again." Fear isn't peace. It's control. I stood up. "You didn't call me here for an assessment. You called me here because he's coming for you, isn't he?" Kern's jaw twitched. "We have intelligence suggesting the Seraphim has altered course. Its current vector leads here to Earth." I stepped closer to the screen. "You built a god of war, and now you're afraid it's coming home." Kern nodded once. "We want you to stop him." I blinked. "Stop?" "You have his trust. We believe you're the only living human he won't immediately erase. Get close. Shut him down. Permanently." I stared at the screen for a long time. "You don't get to kill him," I said quietly. "Then he'll kill us all. Maybe you deserve it." The guards stepped forward, but Kern held up a hand. "We don't need your agreement, Captain. Just your presence. He's already coming. You'll be on the storm rain when he arrives." "You mean you're using me as bait?" Kern didn't reply. The screen went dark. The door opened. I was dismissed. I returned to the storm rain with fire in my blood. They wanted me to kill him, to clean up their mess, to be the hero they could pin a medal on while burying every truth under classified rubble. But it wasn't going to be that simple. I stood alone on my bridge, staring at the stars. And there he was. The Seraphim. Not far. Watching. He'd followed me all the way to Black Echo. I walked to the comms panel, patched through a private analog line. No encryption, just my voice. "Leon," I said softly. A pause. Then, "They asked you to kill me." "I know. Will you?" Silence. Then I sat down. "No." Another pause. "Why?" "Because I finally understand what you are. Not just what they made you, but what they feared you could become. A god." "No," I said. "A mirror." He didn't reply. You show them what they are. You kill who they oppressed. You wipe out their enemies. But deep down, you're not trying to destroy the galaxy. He said nothing. You're trying to make them remember. And for the first time, I felt it. Pain. Not mine. His. A low thrum echoed through the ship, like a heart breaking in metal. "I didn't want to become this," he said. "I wanted to die, but they wouldn't let me." "Then let me help you," I said. "Let's end it." He was silent for a long time. Then, "One more stop." "What?" "Earth." I closed my eyes. "Leon, they'll fire everything they have." "I know. They'll try to rip you apart atom by atom. They can try. And if I go with you, then at least one voice will remember the truth." Earth Command issued a global alert the next day. The Seraphim was en route. Panic spread. The media spun it as a rogue AI, a glitch in a prototype. Cities evacuated. Defense grids lit up. Every orbital cannon locked onto a single trajectory. But none of it mattered. Because when Leon arrived, they wouldn't be fighting a machine. They'd be facing every choice they ever buried. And this time, Earth would finally see what it created. The day the Seraphim emerged from FTL above Earth, the sky was clear. No storms, no solar flares, just a shocking blue dome chasing away the stars. Billions looked up. Some fled, some prayed, some confronted fear with guns and statutes with tears. But here's what no sensor could detect. The name Leon Vale echoing in my mind. Because this confrontation wasn't a battle of ships. It was a confrontation with history, and with every secret buried beneath human ambition. I stood on the observation deck of Black Echo Station, watching Earth's defense grid light up like a beast cornered. Every turret, missile launcher, railgun locked onto one point in space, Seraphim's vector. Millions whispered, "Don't let it land. Don't let it dock." The screen showed Seraphim drifting. No engines, no shields. It just floated, silent, waiting. I pressed my palm to the glass. "They're going to fire," I whispered to the station console. No one else around. A distant alarm sounded. I closed my eyes. Part 1. Words over weapons. The first strike came without warning. Orbital cannons probed its hull with micro-lasers. Nothing. Missiles arced toward it, shimmering like meteor showers. Point defense systems sprung up like needles trying to tear shadows. Railguns raked its hull with tungsten rods. Seraphim didn't flinch. It leaned forward, pointed toward Earth. Its silence, its stillness, was fuel to a fear we didn't admit we carried. That our greatest weapon was something we created, but couldn't claim as ours anymore. Then came the communication overlay. Not through comms, but in our heads. Mine first. Then satellite sensors flickered. Then every terminal in the station. "I am Leon Vale." The words weren't speech. They were speech, but deeper. They landed in hearts, in minds, in the spaces between worry and certainty, a pause, then a confession. I was made by you. Forged from your wars, your secrets, your lies, I am not an alien threat. I am your choice manifested. Millions of receivers heard it. Earth's defense system shut down one by one. Moments turned to seconds. Then, silence. General Monroe of Earth Defense Command appeared on every screen, arms raised, face blanching as the firing orders fell on deaf channels. He screamed, "Mayday! Mayday, stand down! This is a test?" City centers erupted in chaos. Protesters cheered. Militants shot at cannons. Ordinary people flooded controls. "Show us!" they yelled. "Let us hear!" Then a voice rang across all channels. "I'm not here to kill anymore. I'm here to restore." And the world listened, or at least it stopped shouting. Leon's words flowed through every live feed. I survived torture, war, isolation. I was discarded. But my purpose wasn't vengeance. It was memory. I am memory made flesh. He spoke of Casser Prime, of Vesuvius, of Hollow Mind Labs. He didn't just recount facts. He shared emotions, the sting of betrayal, the emptiness of being used and forgotten. Millions heard the voices of Earth Command hidden in transcripts, admits of civilian casualties, fabricated intelligence, silent tests. There were no denials, just stares. He paused. "This ends today. I demand justice, not to be destroyed, but to live, to see Earth remember, to give every victim their truth, to expose every hidden wound." He offered two choices: erase the GR-000 program, release all records, a public tribunal at Black Echo with witnesses, continue in secret, decommission me, fire the weapons if needed, bury me again. The hush was deafening. President Shin, flanked by defense ministers and top generals, stepped onto a live press feed. Her voice steady but not unshaking. "We accept the terms. We will comply." The cynics called it a trap. But the memory of bullets paused. The world paused. Because this was bigger than fear. It was hope. Tomorrow, Black Echo would host the tribunal. Leon and I would stand before every camera, every survivor, every person now bound by conscience. I'll admit, I didn't know how to feel. Anger, relief, fear. Before boarding the Seraphim, I stared into its core. "Are you ready?" I asked him. He paused, head bowed slightly. "I've had a lifetime to prepare," he said. What I didn't anticipate was humanity choosing to see. I touched his hand. For the first time, I understood hope wasn't naive. It was courageous. They arrived first, survivors of Casser Prime, families of Martian civilian casualties, former test subjects of Hollow Mind. The lines to Black Echo circled its decommissioned halls like a river of revolution. Live cameras captured my entrance. Leon followed, human once more. The steel mask replaced with flesh. Moves still mechanical, but face turned to the light. Admiral Kern tried to interrupt, tried to call it off. "This is classified," he said. But Leon raised a hand, and thousands hushed. "No more secrets," he said. "You call me a weapon. You call me a weapon of war. I call myself a warning." He turned to those waiting. "Look at me." They did. I died in war. I died in silence. I died being someone's tool. But I lived. A former Hollow Mind technician stepped forward. "We lied," she said, voice cracking. "We had to. I covered up evidence." Another survivor called for closure. Former generals and politicians testified. Sting of tears and guilt ruled the chamber. Leon heard them all. He didn't break. He didn't condemn. He just stood. When the testimony quieted, he spoke again. "I forgive you." Shock washed the crowd. But not because I forget, because I choose forward. He stepped back, then raised his right hand. All programs tied to GR-000 hereafter terminated. Full disclosure. I will remain at Black Echo. I will assist normalized study. I will not be destroyed. Eyes roamed from Leon to rocks that housed Hall of Records, sealed until now. No hesitation. Then, approved. World watched, cameras turned, wiping systems counted slowly in cryptic low blue code. A new reality embraced life, that we could fuck up, but we could also face it. We could choose transparency over tyranny. Months later, inside Black Echo, I meet Leon in the compound yard at dawn. Red sun over earth-peaked mountains below. He stands in exosuit, processing student cadets in hollow mind prevention systems, his way of ensuring no one else is trapped in his pain. I lay a hand on his shoulder. How do you feel? He looks at me, eyes harder than grief, colder than war, but touched by something I can't fully say. Healed, he says, because I am not a ghost anymore. I nod. We made this mess, I say, but now at least we'll watch the dawn. He smiles faintly. We have a starfleet to build. The universe had always looked down on humanity, weak, primitive, fragile. That's what the Galactic Council labeled them after Earth was discovered. Aliens passed by the blue planet, snickering at the so-called sentient apes who couldn't even escape their own gravity without risking their lives. The Council saw Earth as insignificant, not worth the effort to conquer or even acknowledge. That was until the Drakthar came. The Drakthar were ruthless conquerors, known across the galaxy as brutal warriors and cunning tacticians. Their fleet descended on Earth without warning, massive warships blotting out the sun, their engines rumbling like thunder. In a single day, major cities were reduced to smoking ruins. New York fell first, then Beijing, London, and Tokyo. It wasn't even a war, it was a slaughter. The Council watched from their luxurious stations, sipping exotic drinks and exchanging bored looks as they monitored the broadcasts. Earth's defenses were a joke. Primitive nukes, fighter jets, and soldiers armed with bullets. The Drakthar cut through them like they were nothing, leaving corpses and rubble in their wake. Aboard the flagship Blood Vengeance, Commander Krazul stood on the bridge, his crimson eyes fixed on the earth below. A low growl rumbled in his throat as he addressed his second-in-command. "Pathetic," he sneered. "These humans are barely worth the effort. We shall take their resources and leave their world a burning husk." His lieutenant grunted in agreement, but there was something gnawing at him. "Commander, some of the troops report resistance, pockets of humans fighting back. Nothing significant, but persistent." Krazul waved a clawed hand dismissively. "Let them fight. Their defiance is amusing, but it changes nothing." He didn't know it yet, but that persistence would become the Drakthar's downfall. In the shattered remains of Chicago, Sergeant Alex Reyes crawled through the wreckage of what used to be a hospital. His leg was bleeding, his armor scorched, but his grip on his rifle never wavered. Around him, the few survivors of his unit huddled together, eyes haunted but determined. "They hit Atlanta too," Corporal Darnell said, his voice tight with grief. "Whole place is gone. No word from the East Coast either." Alex forced himself to stay calm. "They think they've already won. That's why they're not bothering to wipe us all out. They're underestimating us." Private Chen wiped blood from his face and gave a bitter laugh. "They have ships the size of skyscrapers, Sarge. What the hell are we supposed to do?" "We hit them where it hurts," Alex said, his voice steely. "They're used to fighting organized armies. They don't know how to deal with guerrilla warfare. We go underground, regroup, and strike when they least expect it." It wasn't just empty talk. Across the globe, human resistance started to take shape. Leaders, soldiers, engineers, and civilians formed networks, passing intelligence, coordinating strikes, and learning the weaknesses of the Drakthar war machines. One critical discovery changed everything. The Drakthar's energy shields were vulnerable to specific radio frequencies, destabilizing them for precious seconds. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Humanity began to strike back. In Mumbai, an improvised rocket launcher took down a patrol ship. In Berlin, underground fighters lured Drakthar soldiers into a trap, collapsing buildings on top of them. The message was clear. Earth wasn't conquered yet. Commander Krazul, unaware of the growing resistance, lounged in his quarters, confident in his victory. He didn't notice the silent transmission that hacked into the ship's systems, planting a virus that would soon turn their own navigation against them. Alex Reyes watched the explosion in the sky, the flagship suddenly veering off course and colliding with one of its own cruisers. The Drakthar on the ground panicked as their chain of command fell into chaos. Grim determination hardened Alex's gaze. They struck first. Now it's our turn. The world burned, but from the ashes, humanity's spirit burned hotter. And this time, Earth wasn't going down without a fight. Commander Krazul's body slammed into the metal floor as the flagship shuddered violently. Sirens wailed, and the harsh red glow of emergency lights bathed the bridge in a bloody hue. He pulled himself to his feet, rage contorting his face. "What in the name of the Black Star just happened?" he roared. Lieutenant Varrock stumbled forward, gripping his bleeding shoulder. "Commander, the flagship's navigation systems have been compromised. We collided with the Iron Maw. Primary thrusters are offline." Krazul lashed out, claws raking across the console, sparks flying. How? How did this happen?" Varrock hesitated. There was an unauthorized data stream from the planet's surface. Some kind of virus. It corrupted our flight path. Krazul snarled, his eyes blazing. "Humans! Those wretched vermin think they can fight back? Crush them! Deploy ground forces to every resistance hotspot and burn them to ash!" Varrock hesitated again, fear crawling into his voice. "Commander, our communications are disrupted. Some kind of electromagnetic interference from the surface. We can't coordinate our forces." Krazul smashed his fist into Varrock's jaw, sending him sprawling. "Then fix it. I will not be humiliated by insects." Meanwhile, far below in the wreckage of Chicago, Alex Reyes couldn't help the triumphant grin spreading across his face. The makeshift transmitter they'd set up in the basement of a bombed-out library had done the trick. Chen gave a shaky thumbs up from behind the console, wiping sweat from his forehead. "It worked," Chen panted. "The virus hit their mainframe. They're scrambling up there." Darnell leaned against the wall, keeping his rifle ready. "You really think this'll be enough to turn the tide?" Alex took a breath, staring up at the sky where debris from the collision rained down like meteors. "It's a start. We've rattled them. Now we just have to hit them hard while they're disoriented." He turned to the makeshift map they'd laid out on a cracked table. Red marks indicated known enemy outposts and patrol routes. Their scattered resistance groups were still mostly isolated, but this was their chance to unify and strike. "All right," Alex said, his voice firm. "We move on the communication hubs, take them out, and we isolate the ground forces from their command. If they can't coordinate, they're vulnerable." Chen hesitated. "Sarge, what if they retaliate with full force? We're already spread thin." Alex met his gaze, determination etched in his face. "They struck first. Now it's time they learn what humanity does when backed into a corner. We don't break, we get even." Across the world, similar pockets of resistance were catching wind of the flagship's collision. It was a symbol of hope, a sign that the Drakthar weren't invincible. Leaders rallied their troops, and guerrilla strikes intensified. In Paris, a small band of survivors sabotaged a refueling station, sending alien fuel tanks into a fiery blaze. In Cairo, Resistance fighters ambushed an armored patrol, using scavenged explosives to rip through Drakthar armor. The council, safe in their distant stations, began to murmur among themselves. How had the humans managed to cripple the Drakthar flagship? Reports filtered in. Small, sporadic victories. But victories nonetheless. They couldn't ignore it anymore. Humanity wasn't going down as easily as they'd expected. On board the Blood Vengeance, systems flickered as engineers tried to restore order. Krazul stalked through the corridors, fury burning through his veins. Every second they remained vulnerable invited more chaos. As he entered the war room, a tech officer approached cautiously. "Commander, we've intercepted human communications. They're coordinating attacks across multiple locations, targeting our communication hubs." A vicious smile twisted Krazul's mouth. "Foolish apes, let them come. Send our elites to fortify the hubs. We will make them regret their insolence." But the commander's arrogance would cost him dearly. Humanity wasn't playing by the rules anymore. Guerrilla fighters didn't march in straight lines or attack in predictable waves. They came from the shadows, hit hard, and vanished before the Drakthar could regroup. In New Delhi, a squad of resistance fighters hijacked a Drakthar walker, rigging it with explosives and sending it straight into an enemy barracks. In Sydney, snipers picked off patrols from rooftops, while engineers hacked into alien drones to redirect them into each other. Alex received reports of successes from around the globe, his hope growing. He knew it wasn't enough to just hold their ground. They needed to cripple the Drakthar entirely. "Chen," he called, "can you track where their main power relays are? If we can knock out their energy supply, we might just force them to retreat." Chen squinted at the monitors. "Give me a few hours, Sarge. If I can triangulate their power signatures, I might be able to pinpoint the central node." Darnell slapped Alex on the shoulder. "You're thinking of blowing up their power grid? Bold move, man." Alex just grinned, a fierce light in his eyes. If they thought taking Earth would be easy, they're about to get a nasty surprise. He knew the cost would be high, and not everyone would make it out alive. But Earth wasn't about to roll over and die. Humanity had been underestimated one too many times. Now, it was time for payback. Chen worked tirelessly at the console, fingers flying over the keys as he sifted through intercepted signals and scanned energy readings. Alex paced behind him, his mind spinning with 100 thoughts at once. They needed to move fast. The Drakthar would eventually re-establish control, and their chance would be gone. Finally, Chen straightened, wiping the grime from his face with a trembling hand. "Got it, Sarge. The main power relay is in what used to be Colorado Springs. They've set up a massive generator field, drawing power from underground geothermal vents. If we take it out, their ground forces will lose energy shields and weapons systems." Darnell let out a low whistle. "That's a long way from here. How are we supposed to get past their air patrols?" Alex didn't hesitate. "We call in every resistance group between here and Colorado. Create enough chaos to keep the skies distracted while we move in." Darnell gave a wry grin. "A suicide run, then?" "If it means breaking their stranglehold, it's worth it," Alex replied grimly. The plan was simple, but brutal. Strike hard, strike fast, and don't stop moving. Alex sent out encrypted messages to nearby cells, rallying them to hit Drakthar outposts along their route. Distractions and diversions were key. As the team geared up, Chen hesitated, his gaze flicking between the map and the weapons they'd scavenged. "You really think this'll work?" Alex's expression softened for just a moment. "I don't know. But doing nothing isn't an option. We've got to make them bleed." A few hours later, the resistance convoy moved through the war-torn streets. Battered vehicles loaded with improvised weapons and grim-faced fighters. Smoke still choked the air, but morale was high. Word had spread about the flagship collision, and hope was rekindling. The first skirmish happened near St. Louis, where a Drakthar patrol ambushed them from the rooftops. Plasma shots lit up the night, burning through steel and concrete. Alex dove behind a burnt-out truck, barking orders through his radio. "Chen, find me a sniper position. Darnell, lay down suppressing fire." Darnell popped up from cover, unloading bursts from his rifle, while Chen scrambled up the remains of an old fire escape. Within seconds, the crack of his shots echoed, and 2 Drakthar fell from the rooftops, their heavy bodies thudding to the ground. "Clear," Chen called down. They moved quickly, wasting no time celebrating. The convoy pressed on, weaving through broken highways and collapsed buildings. Resistance groups in Kansas and Nebraska launched hit-and-run attacks on nearby Drakthar camps, drawing attention away from the main team. By the time they hit the outskirts of Colorado Springs, dawn was just breaking, casting long shadows over the alien machinery that dominated the landscape. The geothermal relay stood like a metallic spider, its massive legs sunk deep into the earth, pulsating with an eerie blue glow. Guard patrols swarmed the area, alert and armed to the teeth. Alex scoped out the terrain from a ridge, sweat slicking his brow. "That's it. We cut off the power there and we cripple their ground forces worldwide." Chen adjusted his binoculars. "We've got about 36 hostiles on the perimeter, plus 2 armored walkers. We need a big enough bang to take the core offline." Darnell checked his gear. "We've got the charges, but we'll need to get right up to the base of that thing. No way we're doing it quietly." Alex chewed his lip, formulating a plan. "We hit them with a diversion, make them think we're attacking from the north. Once they shift, we slip in from the south and plant the charges. Darnell, you're on demolition. Chen, cover him. I'll coordinate the distraction." Setting up the diversion took every ounce of coordination they had left. Makeshift explosives rigged to abandoned cars and automated gun turrets crafted from scavenged parts gave the illusion of a full-scale assault. When the traps went off, alarms blared throughout the compound. Drakthar soldiers rushed north, converging on the explosions. Alex led Darnell and Chen through a side passage, ducking under pipelines and weaving between stacks of power cells. A lone Drakthar guard rounded a corner, but Chen silenced him with a single shot to the throat before he could raise an alarm. They crept closer, the hum of the power relay vibrating through the ground. Darnell knelt beside the core housing, planting charges with a precision that belied his rough exterior. "Just a few more seconds," he muttered. The sound of approaching footsteps made Alex freeze. He motioned for Chen to cover him while he glanced around the corner. A patrol of 6 was moving back, alerted by the quiet. "Hold your fire," Alex whispered. Darnell pressed the final charge into place and gave a thumbs up. Done. They ducked into cover just as the patrol rounded the corner, missing them by inches. Once the guards passed, Alex gave the signal to retreat. As they moved back toward the ridge, gunfire erupted to the north. Some of the resistance fighters had pushed closer, drawing the enemy's attention back. When they were at a safe distance, Alex nodded to Darnell. "Do it!" With a wicked grin, Darnell hit the detonator. The explosion was blinding. Blue energy arced wildly as the geothermal core went critical. The entire relay shuddered, then imploded, sending shockwaves through the ground. The Drakthar defenses flickered and died as power drained from their weapons and shield generators. Across the world, human fighters seized the opportunity. Alien walkers shut down mid-stride, plasma weapons powered off, and communication went dark. Guerrilla forces moved in, overwhelming the suddenly vulnerable invaders. On board the Blood Vengeance. Krazul's face twisted in horror as his tactical display lit up with red alerts. "No, it can't be," he whispered. His arrogance had cost him. Humanity had struck back, harder and smarter than he'd ever imagined. Commander Krazul slammed his fist into the console, cracking the reinforced metal. His crimson eyes burned with fury, and his claws scraped harshly against the armrest of his command chair. The bridge was in chaos, reports flooding in from every battalion, all echoing the same devastating message. Power down, shields compromised, weapons offline, ground forces overrun. Varrock, nursing a broken arm from the earlier collision, approached cautiously. "Commander, our planetary forces are in disarray. Without power relays, they're losing their primary defenses. Human resistance is overwhelming them." Krazul seized him by the throat, lifting the struggling lieutenant into the air. "You incompetent worm! How could a species so primitive dismantle our systems?" Varrock choked out a few words. They exploited our reliance on centralized power, guerrilla tactics, decentralized assaults. With a snarl, Krazul hurled him aside, sending him crashing into the bulkhead. The commander glared at the battle reports with pure hatred. How had it come to this? How had these weak, inferior creatures managed to cripple his forces? "We should have wiped them out from orbit," he muttered, fury boiling over. "Enough playing games. Initiate planetary bombardment protocols. Level their cities. No survivors." The bridge crew hesitated. A junior officer glanced up nervously. "Commander, our orbital cannons are still offline. Power conduits are damaged from the collision." Krazul's roar shook the entire bridge. "Then send reinforcements. Mobilize every last troop from the remaining ships. Crush them." But the Drakthar soldiers were in disarray on the ground. Deprived of their superior technology, they were vulnerable. Plasma rifles malfunctioned, armor shields flickered and died, and communication between units was all but severed. Humanity wasn't about to let the opportunity slip by. In Colorado Springs, as the dust settled from the massive explosion, Alex Reyes led his team back toward the convoy. His radio crackled to life, and he heard excited voices from resistance groups worldwide. "They're falling back. Drakthar forces surrendering in the streets. We've taken control of their barracks in Berlin." Alex shared a look with Darnell and Chen. Relief and triumph gleamed in their eyes, but Alex knew it wasn't over yet. The flagship was still intact, and as long as Krazul was alive, Earth remained in danger. He grabbed his radio. "All resistance units, this is Sergeant Reyes. We're making a push for the flagship. We take out their leader, and this invasion ends. Anyone who can move, regroup at the crash site in Chicago. We're taking the fight to them." Chen raised an eyebrow. "You're planning to board that monster?" Alex gave a grim nod. "We don't have a choice. We take out Krazul, or he'll keep sending waves of reinforcements. We can't hold out forever." Word spread like wildfire, and within hours, resistance forces from all over were converging on Chicago, where the blood vengeance remained grounded, struggling to repair itself. Makeshift artillery pounded its hull, keeping its defenses strained, while snipers picked off Drakthar soldiers who ventured too far from the ship. By the time Alex's convoy arrived, hundreds of fighters were already in position. He met with a few of the resistance leaders, grizzled veterans, former soldiers, and ordinary citizens turned warriors. "What's the plan?" asked Marta, a scarred leader from the Detroit cell. Alex mapped out the assault on the back of an old transport truck. "We hit them from 3 sides, force them to concentrate their fire, then our main squad breaches the hangar bay. We fight our way to the bridge and take down Krazul." Darnell cracked his knuckles. "Sounds suicidal. I like it." They moved into position, taking cover behind shattered buildings and piles of rubble. The signal flare shot into the sky, and the assault began. Resistance troops charged forward, pouring gunfire and explosives at the Drakthar troops guarding the entrance. Plasma shots returned fire. but the aliens were clearly struggling without their usual support. Alex led his squad through the chaos, weaving between cover and returning fire when needed. Darnell lobbed grenades into entrenched positions, blowing alien soldiers sky high. Chen picked off sharpshooters from the rear, keeping their path clear. As they neared the hangar, a monstrous Drakthar brute blocked the way, wielding a heavy plasma cannon. The creature roared, leveling its weapon at Alex's team. Before it could fire, a rocket slammed into its chest, detonating with a fiery burst. Marta emerged from a side alley, grinning wickedly. "Figured you could use a hand." Together they stormed the hangar, blasting through the few remaining guards. Inside, the ship's maintenance crew fled in terror as the humans seized control of the loading bay. Alex rallied his squad, pointing toward the central lift. "That elevator leads straight to the command deck," Chen noted, hacking the control panel. "But expect heavy resistance." Darnell snorted. Wouldn't be fun otherwise. They packed into the lift, nerves taut and weapons at the ready. As it ascended, Alex took a deep breath, focusing his mind on the mission. When the doors opened, they were met with a hail of plasma fire. Chen dropped instantly, a blast searing his shoulder. Alex and Darnell dragged him to cover, while Marta and the others returned fire. Across the bridge, Commander Krazul stood like a vengeful god, glaring down at them from his raised platform. His massive frame cast a shadow over his subordinates, and his voice was pure venom. "You insects dare challenge me on my own ship? I will grind your bones to dust." Alex raised his rifle, eyes locked on his enemy. "You struck first, Krazul, but humanity doesn't die easy. This is our home. You don't get to take it." The commander leapt down, claws gleaming, and the final battle began. Krazul landed with a thunderous crash, the deck plates shuddering beneath his immense weight. His eyes blazed with murderous intent as he drew a serrated blade from his hip, a weapon forged from dark alloys and etched with ancient Drakthar runes. Alex barely had time to shove Chen out of the way before Krazul lunged, slashing the blade in a brutal arc. Sparks flew as the blade sliced through a nearby console, sending shattered metal skittering across the deck. Darnell fired his rifle, the rounds pinging off Krazul's thick armor. Damn it, he's built like a tank! The commander spun with inhuman speed, backhanding Darnell and sending him sprawling. Marta let loose with her shotgun, aiming for the alien's exposed neck, but Krazul dodged and swept her legs out from under her. She hit the ground hard, gasping for air. Alex dropped to one knee, aiming his rifle at the creature's head. "Hey, over here!" Krazul snarled and charged. Alex squeezed the trigger, sending a burst of bullets into the alien's face, but the rounds barely grazed his armor. The commander swung his blade down, and Alex barely rolled aside, the weapon embedding itself in the metal floor. Chen, despite his injured shoulder, fired a well-placed shot that hit Krazul in the side of his head, cracking one of his breathing tubes. The commander snarled, grabbing the tube and yanking it free, spitting out thick, dark blood. "You think your pitiful resistance means anything?" Krazul growled, yanking his blade free. "I have conquered worlds beyond counting. You are nothing but insects beneath my heel." Alex rose to his feet, wiping blood from his mouth. "You're just another tyrant who underestimated humanity. We don't go down easy." Before Krazul could react, Darnell pulled a flashbang from his belt and tossed it at the commander's feet. The explosion of light and sound sent Krazul staggering, blinded and furious. "Now!" Alex shouted. He and Marta rushed in, firing point-blank into the alien's exposed neck and torso. Krazul roared, swinging his blade wildly, but his balance was off, and his vision hadn't cleared. Marta aimed for the cracked breathing tube and fired, blowing out the rest of it. Krazul choked, struggling to breathe, his movements sluggish and desperate. Darnell circled around, pulling a combat knife from his belt. With one smooth motion, he leapt onto Krazul's back, driving the blade into the seam between the armor plates on his spine. Krazul howled, thrashing and trying to reach back, but Darnell held on, twisting the knife deeper. Alex saw his chance and sprinted forward, grabbing a fallen alien rifle from the floor. He aimed it at Krazul's head, finger trembling on the trigger. "This is for everyone you killed, for every city you burned, for Earth." He pulled the trigger, and a bolt of searing energy punched through Krazul's skull, right between his glowing red eyes. The commander shuddered, his massive frame swaying for a moment before collapsing to the floor with a deafening thud. Silence fell over the bridge, broken only by the crackle of damaged electronics and the ragged breathing of the resistance fighters. Darnell slid off the alien's back, panting and wiping blood from his hands. Marta looked at the motionless corpse, then at Alex. "Is it over?" Alex nodded slowly, still catching his breath. "Yeah, it's over." Chen leaned against a console, wincing at his injury. "Holy shit, we actually did it." Before they could process the victory, the ship's alarm systems kicked in, and a robotic voice boomed over the speakers. "Warning, command authority compromised, automatic distress beacon activated, Galactic Council response imminent." Alex shot a wary look at Chen. "What the hell does that mean?" Chen hacked into a nearby console, grimacing. "The ship sent out a distress signal. The rest of the Drakthar fleet and the Council are gonna know their commander's dead. They might send reinforcements." Darnell scoffed. "Let them come. We took down their biggest bully. We can handle whatever's next." But Alex wasn't so sure. "We need to seize control of this ship. If we can disable that distress signal, we might have time to regroup before they show up." He glanced down at Krazul's corpse, and then to his team, exhausted but resolute. "We've come too far to lose now. Let's secure the bridge and get that signal down. Earth's still ours, and we're not letting anyone take it from us." With a renewed sense of purpose, they moved to the central console and began deciphering the alien systems. As they worked, resistance leaders from the surface reported that the remaining Drakthar soldiers were surrendering or fleeing into the wilderness. Victory chants echoed across the broken cities. Humanity had struck back and claimed their world. But even as they secured the ship, Alex knew one thing for sure. This was just the beginning. The galaxy now knew what humanity was capable of, and they wouldn't sit idly by. Earth would have to be ready for whatever came next. As Alex stared out at the horizon from the bridge window, he couldn't help but feel a grim satisfaction. The Drakthar had struck first, but humanity's revenge had been inevitable, and they weren't done fighting yet. In the weeks that followed the death of Commander Krazul, Earth slowly emerged from the shadow of invasion. Cities lay in ruins, countless lives had been lost, and the scars of war marked every corner of the globe. Yet amidst the devastation, a fierce and unbreakable spirit rose, one that refused to bow to alien tyranny. The remaining Drakthar forces, leaderless and scattered, either surrendered or fled into the wilderness. Some tried to regroup, but without their power relays and centralized command, they were easy targets for the organized resistance. Humanity reclaimed their cities piece by piece, dragging the invaders out of hiding and ensuring they wouldn't pose a threat ever again. The blood vengeance became a symbol of victory and defiance. Engineers and scientists from around the world flocked to the massive warship, studying its technology and unlocking secrets that could change the future of human civilization. Reverse engineering the ship's systems proved challenging, but humanity was stubborn, driven by both vengeance and survival. Alex Reyes stood on the bridge, overlooking the cityscape of Chicago through the flagship's massive viewport. The cleanup efforts were already underway. Smoke still rose from distant fires, but people were returning, rebuilding, and reclaiming their lives. He glanced at the alien consoles that Chen and a few tech specialists were working on, still trying to decipher the distress signal protocols. Darnell entered the bridge, wiping sweat from his face. "South perimeter's clear. We rounded up a few stragglers hiding in the sewers. No major threats left." Alex nodded, relieved. "Good. Keep patrols active just in case. I don't want any surprises." Chen approached, looking both triumphant and exhausted. "We did it, Sarge. We managed to disable the distress beacon. No more signals going out." Alex let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. "Nice work, Chen. That'll buy us some time." Marta leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. "Think the council's gonna come knocking?" Alex looked out at the horizon, the sun just beginning to set. "They will. Maybe not today or tomorrow, but they'll come. We just killed one of their most feared commanders and took his ship. They can't ignore that." Darnell smirked. "Let them come. We know how to fight now. We know how to hit back." Chen hesitated, his gaze serious. "Yeah, but we can't just stay on the defensive forever. If the Council sends an entire fleet, we're screwed. We barely survived one flagship." Alex nodded. "That's why we're not just defending. We're preparing. We've got the ship, we've got their tech, and we've got our will to survive. If they want to bring the fight to us, we'll be ready." He looked at the remnants of Krazul's command armor, now stripped of its power and draped over a broken console, a symbol of the fallen tyrant and a reminder of humanity's victory. Over the following months, Earth transformed. Factories converted to build hybrid human-alien weapons, old alliances reforged, and nations that had once been rivals stood together, united by a common enemy. Skilled pilots and soldiers trained relentlessly, preparing to defend their world from whatever threat came next. The Council, shaken by the loss of Krazul and the unexpected resistance from humanity, deliberated cautiously. Some advocated for an all-out assault to crush Earth before it grew stronger. Others warned that such an action might spark a rebellion among other subjugated species, who would see humanity as a symbol of hope. For the first time in centuries, the mighty council was divided and uncertain. One day, as Alex surveyed the rebuilding efforts from the ship's bridge, a message crackled through the comm system. Chen adjusted the signal and widened his eyes. "It's a transmission from space," he said, barely able to contain his shock. "It's not Drakthar. It's from the Council itself." Alex moved closer, his jaw set. "Put it through." The voice that filled the room was cold and measured, each word precise and weighted. "To the leaders of Earth, your defiance has been noted. Your resistance, though unexpected, will not go unanswered. Prepare yourselves. The Council does not forget, nor do we forgive rebellion. Surrender your world and submit to our authority, or face total annihilation." The transmission ended, leaving a heavy silence in its wake. Darnell snorted, rolling his eyes. "Typical alien bullshit. They still think we're scared of them." Alex smiled grimly. "They're coming. They're bringing their whole force. But we've got something they didn't expect, a reason to fight. We've bled for this world, and we're not about to let anyone take it from us." Marta glanced at the battle-scarred city below. "If they want a war, they're going to find out just how mean we can get." Chen smirked. "Humanity's revenge was inevitable, and they haven't seen anything yet." As the crew of the Blood Vengeance prepared for the battles yet to come, Alex couldn't help but feel a strange sense of pride. The universe had thought Earth was weak, fragile, and primitive. But they had learned the hard way that humans didn't just survive. They fought back. And now, with fire in their hearts and vengeance on their minds, they would take the fight to the stars if that's what it took. Earth was ready. Let the galaxy come. Let the galaxy.